Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar on Xinjiang, Cutting the Conversation Once for All, co-sponsored by Islamabad Institute of Conflict Resolution in collaboration with China NGO Network for International Exchanges. And first, let's welcome our good old friend, Ms. Sabah Aslam, head of the Islamabad Institute of Conflict Resolution, to give her welcome remarks.
Thank you, Ms. Ma. On this very day, I welcome you all, especially Ms. Pang, Ms. Shu, and my dear friends from Pakistan and China and other states for joining us in this webinar. Though, as we know, the current contemporary state of affairs in the international arena regarding maligning different states on different issues and by giving them bad names. So it is all the part of the politics, but we have to sort out the things that we can come up as a group, as a regional bloc, to counter all these false narratives that the West is being propagating on different regional states. So in this regard, we took this initiative to organize a webinar. We should at least start with the webinar, the virtual conferences, then we will take it up to the research and everything on the deep analysis and all, that we should have something in hand on like cutting the conversations once for all. The topic was to highlight the issues and to bring into limelight what actual the reality is and how Western machines are propagating it. So in this regard, we are very thankful to the Embassy of China in Pakistan. Ms. Pang, she gave her commitment to us. And other than that, China NGO Network for International Exchanges to accept our offer for being a partner in organizing this webinar. So I welcome all the participants here on behalf of our institute, IICR, and on behalf of CNIE to this webinar. And I hope that this webinar would be filling up the gaps and filling up the lacunas that are in the research. So thank you so much. And we will be looking forward to hear from all of you and your expert views on it. And then we will be building the policy recommendations for our state and for other states based on your views on this topic. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabah. Now let's welcome Mr. Lujun, Secretary General of CNIE, to deliver his welcome remarks.
Okay, thank you. Distinguished Vice President Xu Lyuping, Minister Councilor Pang Chunxue, representatives from social organizations, think tanks, media, and universities. Good afternoon. I'm Liu Lujun, Secretary General of CNIE. Thanks for the speech delivered by Ms. Aslam. And on behalf of CNIE, I would like to express my sincere thanks and a warm welcome to all delegates. For a period of time, certain countries have manipulated their own resources and influence in international organizations to fabricate and spread lies about the human rights situation in Xinjiang, which has caused harmful influence. The Chinese people and the peoples of various rational countries are very indignant about this. During the 48th session of the United Nations Human Rights Council, CNIE and the IICR jointly organized this webinar, hoping to introduce the real situation of Xinjiang's economic and social development and the protection of human rights. To further clarify facts and expose lies through sincere, rational, and constructive exchange with people from various countries. Just now, Ms. Aslam introduced the delegates invited by her institute, and now let me introduce the delegates invited by CNIE. They are Madam Xu Lyuping, Vice President of CNIE, Pang Chunxue, Minister Councilor of the Chinese Embassy to Pakistan, Carlos Martinez, British writer, co-founder of No Cold War, Wang, researcher at the Institute of China's Borderland Studies, Zhejiang Normal University. Also, we welcome many friends from different countries join us online. Now, we would like to invite Madam Vice President Xu Lyuping to give the keynote speech. Madam Vice President is the former Vice Minister of International Department of CPC Central Committee and has extensive experience in party-to-party and non-governmental exchanges. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Liu. Good afternoon, our friends. China NGO Network for International Exchanges and the Islamabad Institute of Conflicts Resolution of Pakistan. 行吗？没有啊。Sorry. China NGO Network for International Exchanges and the Islamabad Institute of Conflicts Resolution of Pakistan jointly organized this online conference to have candid and in-depth discussions on topics of common concern, which is timely and necessary. In order to maximize their own interests, a few Western countries have fabricated and spread lies about Xinjiang, maliciously discredited the Communist Party of China and the Chinese government with extremely sinister intentions. And their actions have been despised by people in various countries. Now, I would like to make a few comments on the situation in Xinjiang. Firstly, Xinjiang is the beautiful homeland for people of all ethnic groups. Both history and reality have proved that Xinjiang nowadays enjoys the best period of prosperity and development in history, with people of all ethnic groups living in harmony and working in peace and contentment. The living standards, health, and education of ethnic groups have been widely improved. Thanks to the efforts of the people of all ethnic groups, Xinjiang has been free from violent terrorist cases for more than 4 consecutive years. The society is safe and stable, and the people's sense of security has been greatly improved. It is the people living in the Xinjiang who knows it best. A number of Uyghur people in Xinjiang made video statements at the 46th and 47th session of the UN Human Rights Council, saying that people of all ethnic groups in Xinjiang enjoy full freedom of employment. They can work anywhere, and their labor rights and interests are protected by law. As for their right to reproduction, from 2010 to 2018, the population of Uyghurs in Xinjiang increased by 25%, 12.5 times that of the Han population in Xinjiang during the same period. Many foreign friends who have studied, worked, or lived in Xinjiang for a long time say that Xinjiang is home to diverse cultures, and the different ethnic groups have their own customs, traditions, and dietary habits. People can freely use their own ethnic languages, and all sides in daily life are bilingual in Uyghur and Chinese. There are radio and TV channels broadcasting programs in various ethnic languages here as well. The rights to religious belief, culture, and language are respected and protected by law. It is a beautiful homeland where people of all ethnic groups live a happy life. Second, Xinjiang is an important model for targeted poverty alleviation and rural revitalization. The living standard of people of various ethnic groups in Xinjiang has been raised significantly through programs of industrial poverty alleviation. education, medical and health services, as well as infrastructure and housing projects for low-income families. A light industry park was set up in Xinhe County of Aksu. In the past, people of poor families would stay idle at home in winter time. Now they can work in the nearby factories. They can not only earn money, but also take care of the old people and the children. The gross enrollment rate of senior high school is 98.82%, while that of higher education has reached 46.79%. All people have been covered by national basic medicine system. All highways and railways in Xinjiang have been interconnected, while 21 airports for civil purpose are in operation. Over 10 million people have moved into new houses. The problem of safe drinking water for 4.62 million farmers and herdsmen has been solved properly. In November 2020, with the 32 poor counties in Xinjiang removed from the poverty list, the problem of absolute poverty was resolved. At present, Xinjiang is striving to consolidate the results of poverty alleviation, steadily increase employment and income, and quicken the pace of rural revitalization. Third, Xinjiang is the right place of opening up an integration. Seeing is believing. In recent years, more than 1,200 diplomats, journalists, and religious people from more than 100 countries visited Xinjiang. They have walked into bazaars, mosques, and visited Asian towns and farmers' houses. By conducting face-to-face exchanges with local people and on-site integration, interactions with students of vocational education and training centers. They have learned better about the achievements of Xinjiang in promoting social stability, people's livelihood, and economic development. They have told others openly and freely about their impression on Xinjiang. Noting that there are no such things as violations of human rights, religious discrimination, genocide, or forced labor in Xinjiang. They hope to deepen cooperation with Xinjiang in the fields of anti-terrorism, economy and trade, culture and tourism. As the bridge linking China with the markets of Central Asia, the Middle East, and Europe, Xinjiang is at the core position of the Silk Road economic belt and the largest logistics center among all the countries along the Belt and Road. By seeing the opportunities and implementing the strategy of going out and bringing in, Xinjiang is becoming a robust region for opening up, integration, and win-win cooperation. Through the brand programs and platforms such as the Silk Road Community Building Initiative and the SinoNet, CNIE and its member organizations have contributed to the development and the progress of Xinjiang in various fields, such as poverty alleviation, education, medical and health care. In the course of their work, CNIE and its member organizations also truly feel that Xinjiang is secure, stable, and constantly developing, and the people there are living and working in peace and contentment. Facts speak louder than words. The facts and the truths about Xinjiang are there, which could by no means be easily covered up by a few anti-China forces. Justice takes the roots in the hearts of the people. People from all over the world still surely see the real situation in Xinjiang with their own eyes, and the purpose of anti-China forces We believe that Xinjiang will have an even better future. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Xu. Now let's welcome Mr. Carlos Martinez to deliver his presentation. Carlos is an independent researcher from London. He is also the co-founder of No Cold War and co-editor of Friends of Socialist China. Carlos, it's your turn.
Thank you very much for inviting me to speak today. Living in the West, as I do, in London, England, I'm exposed to a very intense media propaganda campaign in relation to Xinjiang. When I read the newspapers or I watch the debates in the Houses of Parliament, I often see accusations of Chinese genocide against Uyghur Muslims, of cultural genocide, of forced labor, of forced sterilization of women, of prison camps. And actually, we see these sorts of accusations every day. Even though the evidence presented is extremely weak, these stories have become a media sensation in the West and have already led to the introduction of some sanctions against China by the US, Britain, Canada, and the European Union. Some politicians are even calling for a boycott of the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympics. The story has penetrated popular consciousness to some extent. It's becoming harder to say anything positive about China. For example, to talk about China's successes in lifting hundreds of millions of people out of poverty, or defeating the COVID-19 pandemic, or assisting developing countries, or investing in renewable energy, or in constantly improving the living standards of its people. Increasingly, it seems that to talk about China positively in the West is to be labeled as a genocide denier. Of course, genocide is a very, very serious charge. Genocide is defined by the United Nations as the purposeful destruction in whole or in part of a national, ethnic, racial, or religious group. It is rightly considered to be one of the gravest crimes against humanity. Therefore, it is not the sort of accusation that should be used carelessly and without evidence. And yet, that is exactly what's happening. The Biden administration and its allies claim that China is engaged in genocide against the Uyghur people. But as Jeffrey Sachs, the very well-known economist at Columbia University, says, the US government has offered no proof, and unless it can, the State Department should withdraw the charge. The charge of genocide should never be made lightly. There are several reports claiming that the Chinese government is attempting to destroy the Uyghurs as a group, mainly by using coercive birth control measures. But the sources of these reports are thoroughly discredited. This so-called research comes almost exclusively from two sources, an individual named Adrian Zenz and a think tank called the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Adrian Zenz is presented to us as a politically neutral data scientist with a passion for human rights. In fact, he's a professional anti-China fanatic, a senior fellow at the Victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, which was established by the US Congress in 1993, specifically to slander and denigrate socialist countries. The Australian Strategic Policy Institute, meanwhile, is an Australian government think tank. It is funded by the Australian Department of Defense, the US Department of Defense, NATO, the US State Department, Britain's Foreign Office, the Japanese Embassy in Australia, Taiwan's Cultural Office in Australia, and some of the world's largest weapons companies, including Lockheed Martin, BAE Systems, and Raytheon. In short, it is deeply involved in the business of the new Cold War and the militarization of the Pacific. These sources are absolutely not credible. They are organs of information warfare being deployed by the US and its allies. The facts about Xinjiang speak for themselves. The Uyghur population from 2010 to 2018 increased from 10.2 million to 12.7 million, an increase of 25%. In the same period, the Han Chinese population in Xinjiang increased by just 2%. Meanwhile, if there were really a genocide taking place, wouldn't we expect to see a refugee crisis? Wouldn't we expect to see refugee camps set up on the borders with Pakistan and Kazakhstan? For example, the US waged genocidal wars in Iraq and Libya, leading to the displacement of millions of people, to a refugee crisis that still continues today. How is it possible that China is carrying out a genocide but not creating any refugees? A slightly more sophisticated accusation is that China is engaged in cultural genocide, that it seeks to destroy Uyghur identity, Uyghur traditions, Uyghur beliefs. And yet one goes to Xinjiang and there's no evidence of any such activity. There are 25,000 mosques in Xinjiang, 3 times more than there were in 1980. This is a very strange type of cultural genocide where the number of mosques increases by a factor of 3. All schools in Xinjiang teach the Uyghur language. All students in Xinjiang learn the Uyghur language regardless of their ethnicity. I personally went to Urumqi in January 2020 with a group of friends. We walked around freely. We certainly didn't see any evidence of religious persecution or ethnic oppression. In fact, we saw hundreds of Uyghur Muslims wearing their distinctive clothing, going about their normal lives, and practicing their culture and traditions. We ate in Uyghur restaurants where we had halal food and where alcohol was not available. We heard the Uyghur language being spoken freely everywhere. All road signs have both Uyghur and Chinese writing. Newspapers can be seen everywhere in the Uyghur language. In fact, Pakistan's ambassador to China, Moin al-Haq, recently participated in a diplomatic observer mission to Xinjiang. He rejected the accusations of human rights abuses, describing Xinjiang as a mosaic of 50+ ethnic minorities, and these ethnic minorities exist in a very peaceful and harmonious manner. Anyone who visits Xinjiang would have to conclude that the accusations of cultural genocide are unfair and inaccurate. What we see with these accusations is a very familiar pattern. The imperialist media uses slander and fake news in order to win broad public support for their government's foreign policy. One famous example of this is the so-called Tonkin incident in 1965, which the US took advantage of to massively escalate its war in Vietnam, a war in which at least 3 million civilians lost their lives. When the US and Britain wanted to win public support to attack Iraq, they invented a story that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and was ready to use them against the West. NATO's armies proceeded to destroy a country and kill hundreds of thousands. When they wanted to win public support to attack Libya, they invented stories that Gaddafi was using rape as a weapon of war, or Gaddafi's armies were getting ready to perpetrate a massacre. NATO's warplanes then again proceeded to destroy a country and kill tens of thousands. All this propaganda regarding Xinjiang is intimately connected with the US-led New Cold War on China, which is a project of hybrid warfare designed to slow down China's rise, to maintain US hegemony, and to prevent the emergence of a multipolar world. China's rise, China's success, its emergence as the world's largest economy, its rapid development in science and technology, its leading role in the struggle against the pandemic, its crucial role in the struggle against climate breakdown, its orientation towards the global South and the developing world, these all constitute a threat in the eyes of the Western powers. This is the core reason for the slander, for the propaganda, for the information warfare. It is simply a part of a US-led new Cold War of which China is the most direct target, but which is in fact directed against the entire developing world, against the global South, and against the very idea of a democratic, multipolar system of international relations based on cooperation, peace, sovereignty, and non-interference. Those of us in the West must work harder to expose the lies that are being spread about China, as these are part of a very dangerous Cold War campaign, which runs counter to the interests of humanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. Now let's welcome Dr. Wang Jiang. Dr. Wang is a research fellow from Zhejiang Normal University, and Dr. Wang also used to be a resident in Xinjiang.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for this unique opportunity. And as I mentioned before, I'm actually from Xinjiang. I'm the 3rd generation in Xinjiang. I'm a Han Chinese. So my research area is laid on the national security issue and also counterterrorism issue. So about Xinjiang, I can offer you not only about my personal experience, but also some of my academic outcomes. So today, there are 3 issues I want to share. So first of all, it's about terrorism. Because I have like a few conferences with our colleagues, the scholars from the Western country. And frequently I heard an argument about the terrorism in Xinjiang is something like, well, there is terrorism attack in Xinjiang, but in the past decades, there are only 4 or 5 instances about terrorism. Other violent instance is not about terrorism. Well, for that argument, I try to use, of course, I can use my personal experience, what I suffered and also what my family, the people around me suffered to argue that. But for that, I would like to say, if people pay attention to some of the Western academic outcomes, such as the Global Terrorism Index, which is made by Australian think tanks, in the past decades, they just follow the global terrorism issues and do the quantitative research. So on that desk in China, in the past decades, we used to be, I think, on the 22nd on this rank. So which is mean is suffered really serious terrorism threat in the past decades, but recently it's got better. So if in Xinjiang or in China, we don't have so many terrorist attacks or incidents, so why the rank is so high? It's really hard to explain. And also pay attention. I mean, it is based on a Western academic institutions outcomes. So I would like to say, from my personal experience and also from my research, the Xinjiang suffered the terrorism and threats is pretty real. And secondly, I want to talk about the so-called like a genocide in Xinjiang. So genocide is the most serious crime for mankind, and China always supports the fight against and the prevention of the genocide. Unfortunately, even there is no valid evidence to prove that genocide occurred objectively or to prove any subjective intention. Some countries and third parties still made groundless accusation and attacks on China in the so-called name of the Xinjiang genocide. In fact, it is very irresponsible to draw a conclusion based solely on hearsay evidence. As far as the international community concerned, I think it's not only this issue, this genocide issue is not only about Xinjiang, but it's have a even larger picture to understand that. So for the international community concerned, fight against the genocide is our common goal. However, we need to be especially alert to the tendency of the terms to be abused. Some related political statements and actions have been far away from the definition and the application of the legal terms, which had a destructive impact on both political and legal levels. Many cases show that the legal terms of the genocide has been, weaponized and politicized, and it becomes a low-cost tool for interfering in the internal affair of another countries. And you can say Xinjiang become like a perfect example for that. So due to this weak position of the developing countries in the field of the international media, they are more likely to become like victim of this phenomena. I believe this will undermine the international concern and will not help the human rights protections. And thirdly, I would like to talk about the so-called like a legal risk for this whole Xinjiang issue to bring. As people, many people do familiar with that, it's like American to setting up some of the law and the acts to against China, against Xinjiang. such as not a long time ago, there's an act called the Eagle Act. And also since last year, there's an act about the so-called Uyghur human rights and also the forced labor in Xinjiang. I think it's just an increased uncertainty of the legal risk, not only on China, but also on many global, many international companies, and also the uncertainty of the legal risk for even for the individuals. As a developing country, as China and also Pakistan and many countries, we are lack of the legal approach to respond to this kind of threats. I think it's those kind of legalization and also the acts and the laws in United States and other countries. It's not really about the protecting your human rights and to encourage the economic development in Xinjiang. They claim the Xinjiang have the labor force, but to exclude all the goods and the products from Xinjiang outside the US and the international market, it is caused the people losing their jobs and causing the suffer from the economic downturns. So I think in the future, it is we still have some of the distance. It's a far away to deal with that. In fact, some of the companies in Xinjiang and even in Hong Kong has tried to set up the lawsuit in US, but as we know, it could be taken forever and it's extremely expensive. So I think for developing country, we don't have enough resource or legal terms in the term of the legal ways to deal with the issue, and I think this should be drive attention. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wang. Now our next speaker is Ms. Maria Zeb. She is the Cultural Program Manager of All Pakistan Chinese Overseas Youth Federation. Maria, it's your turn.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum, ni hao, and welcome everybody. And it's my honor to be here with you, and good afternoon, everybody. I am Maria Zeb, the Culture Program Manager of All Pakistan Chinese Overseas Youth Federation. Our federation wants to congratulate Mr. Xi Jinping and People's Republic of China on its 72th National Day. China has gotten allegations from all the Western media. I want to give my explanations and answers to all of the allegations. China is not against any religion, especially not against Muslim religion or believers. They are emerging allegations day by day from Western media. World Uyghur Congress against China. World Media Group is with World Uyghur Congress, and they highlighted all the fake allegations emerged from World Uyghur Congress. Because at 2019, I myself specially visit China, Urumqi, Gulja, Aksu, Kashgar, Khotan, and more countries. I have seen by myself that all the allegations from Western media, and the number one was destroying mosque in Xinjiang, it was nothing close to the truth. When I visited, I have seen the innovation on all the mosques because I visited China at 2010 when I was a child. At the first time, I saw mosques in their real conditions, and honestly speaking, most of them were very old, and seeing mosques having renovated and made a safe place for worship. I really liked it, and thanks to China government for doing that. And there was a big problem of literacy rate, and Xinjiang was leaving behind the race of economic power. Not only that, but Xinjiang was getting its people leading toward terrorism is such literacy time. At 2009, there was a huge terrorist attack occur where old and young people was murdered in Xinjiang, Urumqi. Whole world knows this incident which already came to media, but this was never highlighted by Western media, by the way. But 2014 railway station terrorism attack in Xinjiang was never highlighted by Western media, and so soon as Mr. Xi Jinping came to China, he started working against terrorism, and not him, but all world is against terrorism. China government has taken some steps against terrorism, and those steps was necessary, which helped to China fight against terrorism successfully. And now, after the people of Xinjiang are secure and living a safe and healthy life and wonderful life, by the way, China government fight against terrorism and extremism and human rights and Uyghur culture protection in Xinjiang. As soon as China President Mr. Xi Jinping became a first president of the first time at 2014, he visited Xinjiang Urumqi, starting working for development among Uyghur people. And first community to get the benefits by the development was Uyghur communities, such like buildings, new free homes from them who were safe as compared to such like buildings. And their old weak houses, and just by the passage of time, Muslims started living a happy life, and thanks to the President Mr. Xi Jinping, Chinese president, took the first step against terrorism, so the Muslims communities will never be going to affect by them. And a lot of Muslim people who were lack of knowledge, by the way, let me tell you one thing, and the education got free education from the Chinese government by the free language centers, where whoever can join it, and there will be no fee or age restrictions. Age restrictions by the free China language centers, whoever can join it, and there will be no fee or age restrictions. And by today's date, these education camps by Western media, reasons why these languages centers are made in Xinjiang, businessmen and people hold higher degrees could go all across the China and communicate in their national language, because for a country, its national language is as important as its development. As we all know, English language is an international language, which is international language of UK or USA. And people even pay money to learn Chinese language so they can be a part of the country's development. This is a benefit to a country and its people. Why is there a problem to Western media of China supporting its national language? Number 3, Western media allegation that China is destroying Uyghur Muslim culture, Muslim language and culture. Now what I want to talk about, now if I talk about culture, and myself have seen Uyghur culture on every step I took. When I was in Xinjiang, I can see people dancing, I can see people, the culture is very beautiful. Now, if culture is very beautiful, Uyghur style, and even as signboards, I can see Uyghur language be written on the top and Chinese language at the bottom. And even in TV, I see Uyghur language is using more often than Chinese, including in songs, news channels. At the end, when I want to ask Western media, which Uyghur Muslim culture and destroyed by China, Number 4, allegation is China damaging Muslims' graves and destroying them. When I visited myself, I saw 100 years old mosque newly renovated and got fixed by the government of China. And this even can be seen online video evidence. Number 5, the allegation against China getting separated from each other when China government made new free houses of Uyghur Muslims to give them better residence in city area and develop the economy of country. Xinjiang development and construction is such highly developed that you can see some viral videos on internet about it. Even I was amazed seeing skyscrapers, flyovers and internet about it. Even I was amazed seeing skyscrapers, flyovers, museums. China government had developed Xinjiang in such a way that Xinjiang tourism is so well, and not only for people outside the country, but even people living in inner China comes to Xinjiang as believed to be far better going to any other country of tourism, and tourism is far better than going to any other country. beneficial for our country. For the city which is popular for its beautiful development, just like university education finished every country, youth needs opportunities, job opportunities, by the way. University education finished every country. In other country, people have to find job itself, but China government helps its own people to get jobs right after they graduate. So World Uyghur Congress are putting allegations on China, making its people work for free and paying them a penny. Chinese language free education centers was named education camps by Western media. And World Uyghur Congress, they should be ashamed of their words, by the way. I need answers from Uyghur Congress and Western media on all of these false allegations and propagandas. No, not and these fake allegations were taken to private UK court by made to tell false stories about their lives. I want to give the world a small example, by the way. And even a small pet cries in front of animal. Human can get emotional seeing these people were fake evidence and crying in front of Western media and taking advantage from Western side of the world. China and see by themselves and see if there are any allegations to become true. China is call of them to see reality by themselves, but they are not ready to visit China. Xinjiang maybe reason will be that today China, it's being economic powerful and being a super powerful country. So that's what will be the reason they don't want to see China being the great. All Pakistan Chinese Overseas Youth Federation, who are more than 1 million, which are strongly against all the Western media false propagandas and allegations, by the way. And we have all the answers, but we have short time. So that's why I'm just ending here. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much, means a lot.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for your thank you for sharing with us. And our next speaker is Mr. Zamir Asadi. Zamir is a journalist with Independent News Pakistan. Zamir, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for providing the opportunity to talk on this very important issue, who has gained the attention of the international community and the people around the globe. They want to listen the true stories, facts and figures from Xinjiang. And we are very, we know that the international media, they are running a campaign, a biased campaign, hitting the very beautiful region of China known as Xinjiang. And I think Pakistan, being a Pakistani journalist and Pakistani citizen, we know that how international media, they develop the narratives about those regions they don't like on various reasons. So we in Pakistan, we see that we have sacrificed a lot in the so-called war on terror, but our sacrifices have never been appreciated by international community or the international media. So same is the case with the Xinjiang. So I would like to state some of the facts and figures in my today's speech. First of all, I would like to state that the remarkable and the valuable developments of Northwestern Xinjiang Autonomous Region, cultivated with the collective efforts of Chinese central and the provincial governments, has dismissed the propaganda peddled by Western elements. And under the visionary leadership of the Communist Party of China, the pluralistic and the diverse region has gained notable achievements on both economic and social levels by providing quality living standards from last many years to its citizens. Xinjiang, the home of colorful ethnic communities, known as a resource-rich region, has been emerging as a magnet for investors for its unique position on the Silk Road. The exact facts and figures about the economic and social development of this region clearly dispel the so-called propaganda of Western think tanks, media, and the institutions. As per a recent report, foreign trade in Xinjiang is witnessing booming growth, and the figures indicate that the region recorded around 97.4 billion yuan in foreign trade in the first 8 months of this year, up 9.5% year on year. From January to August of 2021, Xinjiang exports reached 76.5 billion yuan, while its imports exceeded 20.88 billion yuan. The region's foreign trade with countries along the Belt and Road Initiative notched up about 85.5 billion yuan, marking a robust 14.6% growth year on year and accounting for 87.8% of its total foreign trade during the same period. This data shows that all ethnic groups in Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region enjoy equal rights of economic development and are moving steadily towards the goal of prosperity. The sustainable economic development of the region has helped in achieving common prosperity and improving the several indicators of stable lives. The factual reports from China about Xinjiang region are the clear manifestation of the attention given to this harmonious land for durable development and prosperity in every aspect. Since the People's Republic of China was founded in 1949, the Chinese government has attached great importance to documenting and protecting the excellent traditional ethnic cultures in Xinjiang and ensuring that they are passed on the succeeding generations. Various ethnic cultures of Xinjiang have their roots in the fertile soil of Chinese civilizations, advancing their own cultural development while enriching the overall culture of China. But the Western mindset does not want to see and accept this development in a peaceful way, as it is not in their vested interest. Western ideology of interference being witnessed in previous years does not need any logical evidence to interrupt and tease other independent countries. Western governments only focus on achieving their strategic goals by disturbing others in an undignified manner. I have spent a very good time in China as a journalist and experienced a high level of religious freedom for Muslims residing in various regions. I have also offered 5-time daily prayers in mosques and enjoyed the fasting in China in the holy month of Ramadan with my other Muslim colleagues belonging to different countries. We also celebrated our Eid al-Fitr and Eid al-Adha, known as Eid al-Qurban in China, with full religious zeal and zest, and that have become the memorable parts of our stay in the China. That is the second largest economy of the world. I met with Muslims in various provinces of China who shared with us that the Chinese government is attaching equal importance to protecting the culture of all ethnic groups in Xinjiang, and the citizens' right to freedom of religious belief is also warranted. Muslims in China noted that all the ethnic groups in Xinjiang have equal rights to protect their distinct traditional culture, languages, and words. This confirms that China will not deal with this region in any distinction from other regions. It has been noted that Xinjiang now has over 20,000 mosques and about 29,000 clerical personnel and 103 Islamic associations at all levels. And to date, China Islamic Institute and the Xinjiang Islamic Institute and its branches have trained more than 4,000 students. Mosques are generally equipped with running water, electricity, natural gas, and easy road access. The mosques also have facilities such as communication tools, water dispensers, medical services, and firefighting appliances. More than 40 Islamic publications in different ethnic minority languages are distributed in China's Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region. The Quran and the selections from Sahih al-Bukhari have been published in standard Chinese, Uyghur, Kazakh, and Kyrgyz languages. The government has arranged chartered flights and provided assistance for Muslims to go to Saudi Arabia for pilgrimage, and more than 50,000 Muslims in Xinjiang have made the trip. So all these facts and figures show that the United States and other Western countries and so-called scholars aims to practice its manipulation of Xinjiang related issues for political purposes. In my opinion, US has bundle of issues to be solved on urgent basis for the satisfaction of their local public and improving their governance amid the ravaging impacts of COVID-19 that is still affecting American society at large. With the efforts of consistent policies of Chinese government, Xinjiang has prospered and will move forward on a right path of development and will always respond with contentment to all the biased political allegations of so-called elements. So I think it is the dire need of the time to go through the facts and figures that are being presented by the neutral elements, and those neutral elements, maybe we will not see dominating the Western medias or the Western think tanks, but there are some good voices. There are some good people in the Western media outlets and the Western think tanks who really speak the truth about China and the Chinese government efforts of Xinjiang. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Zamir, and also thank you for your suggestion. Now let's welcome Mr. Mustafa Haider and Saeed. He's the Executive Director of Pakistan China Institute.
Rajahao, Assalamu alaikum and good evening. Thank you, Sabah Aslam, the head of the Institute of Conflict Studies and the China NGO Network, for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here to talk on such an important matter. I would like to talk about three things: the new Cold War, the weaponization of human rights, and counterterrorism. And before I talk, I would like to say that I really enjoyed Carlos Martinez's speech and analysis, very data-driven and very impressive. I've been a regular visitor to Urumqi for the past 12 or 15 years. I've been to Xinjiang at least 8 or 9 times. And I remember going to Urumqi many years ago, and it was not safe to leave the hotel and to walk in the evening at night time. And over the years, which I've been going, I went, the last visit was also just before COVID in 2019. And in 2019, and there was a completely different situation. There was a lot of harmony. There was a lot of much more stability. And I remember going to the bazaar, the Grand Bazaar, and it was a completely impromptu visit. It was not a choreographed visit. And I saw Kyrgyz, Uyghurs, Kazakhs dancing. And I went to a naan shop, and there was a young Muslim Uyghur boy who was selling really delicious, warm, hot naans from Xinjiang, which I had the pleasure of enjoying in his shop. And then it was a very interesting a small story that I bumped into a Pakistani man who was at a jewelry shop in the Grand Bazaar, and he was married to a Uyghur lady. And they were married for many, many years, and they were very happy. So what I saw from my own eyes in 2019 was a lot of harmony, a lot of happiness, a lot of stability, which a couple of years ago was not there. And recently, the Xinjiang government and the Central Committee of the CPC has been successful in eliminating violence in Xinjiang and in restoring stability, which is a very important milestone, I think, and a big success, because terrorism and extremism is a shared challenge of all countries, including Pakistan, China, regional countries, and other countries in the West. Terrorism is a common threat. And I think rather than discrediting countries for undertaking counterterrorism, we must support the countries for undertaking counterterrorism. Because terrorists have no religion, ethnicity, or nationality. They are borderless, and they face and pose a common challenge to humanity. Secondly, when we talk about Xinjiang, I think we need to talk about a broader phenomena, what is happening. And some of the speakers earlier have mentioned that. Let's connect the dots. It's not only Xinjiang, it's Taiwan, it's Hong Kong, it's the Belt and Road Initiative, it's the Communist Party of China. There is a choreographed campaign which reeks of the Cold War mentality, which is anything related to China, focusing on the fault lines, on the supposed fault lines that exist in China. And this policy, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing new. It's not only about China, it is a policy of regime change that has been in the works by the United States since a long time. Before there was the red threat of the Soviet Union. We remember that. Vietnam was invaded. Afghanistan was invaded. There was the Soviet threat, the red threat, and many countries were invaded, Geneva Convention violated, that we have to save the world from communism. After the red threat, there was this great Islamic threat. We have to, Islamic terrorism, as they called it. They said Iraq has weapons of mass destruction. Iraq was invaded, the whole social fabric of the country destroyed. And Condoleezza Rice, who was the national security advisor, later wrote in the book, there were no weapons of mass destruction for which the whole invasion took place. Same happened in Afghanistan. And now you know what the situation in Afghanistan is. The people who the United States invaded Afghanistan for, now the United States has installed them back into power and given them legitimacy. Similar in Iran, in our neighboring country, Mossadegh was uprooted through a military coup which was financed by the CIA, and the Shah of Iran was installed. And many cases, Chile, many countries in Africa, and these are facts. The CIA files have been declassified every 50 years. They declassify their files, so we know what happened. Now, and Carlos referred to this as well. We see that the new target of the United States is the CPC, and there is a choreographed demonization of the Communist Party of China, which is the biggest political party of the world, of over 90 million members. It's the biggest political party of the world. But let us compare. I think we have to compare what has the CPC undertaken in the past 30, 40 years and what the US has done in the past 30 to 40 years. I think that is the best factual way of understanding the situation. I'm going to refer to a New York Times report, because if I refer to a Pakistani or Chinese newspaper report, they say it's propaganda. So I'm going to talk about the New York Times. The Donald Trump, former President Donald Trump, called his predecessor, Jimmy Carter, former President Jimmy Carter, and said, how do I deal with China? They're getting ahead of us. And you know what Jimmy Carter replied? And you can Google this and you'll find it on New York Times. It's a very interesting article. Jimmy Carter said, the difference is that for the past 20 years, China has been focusing on economic development and has not been at war with anyone. And for the past 20 years, we have been at war. This is Jimmy Carter, the former president of the United States, telling Donald Trump. The past 20, 30 years of development since the reform and opening up in 1978, China has risen peacefully through soft power, not through military might. China has not invaded any country. China has not sent warplanes in other countries. China has not orchestrated coups in other countries. You see, the problem is that the weaponization of human rights is something that we are seeing. When in Egypt, General Sisi overthrows Morsi, it is given legitimacy. There's no human rights problem, because the new military chief and the military government is in the political interest of the United States. The United States deals with countries like Saudi Arabia, which is a monarchy. There's no talk of human rights. But when it comes to China, all of a sudden, there is this sympathy for Muslims who they have destroyed and massacred all over the world. And all of a sudden, they realize, oh my God, human rights, what's happening to human rights? So we see the selective application of human rights and the weaponization of human rights as a weapon of war, of fifth generation warfare. The World Uyghur Congress was mentioned earlier. If you go on the National Endowment of Democracy, the NED, which is funded by the State Department and the US Congress, the World Uyghur Congress is financially supported by the National Endowment of Democracy. So I think it's high time that the policies of regime change and interference in other countries is rejected. These policies have to be called out, and this hypocrisy has to be shown a mirror. And my last point about counterterrorism, under the pretext of counterterrorism, the United States has invaded half of the world, Iraq, Libya, Afghanistan. Now there's the ISS threat, which they have created. The Al-Nusra Front was armed by the CIA to oust the Syrian regime led by Bashar al-Assad. Now the ISIS threat is there. So now we have the good terrorists and the bad terrorists. So now Taliban are the right government. They're the good people in Afghanistan. Now there's the ISIS. So now there'll probably be another invasion after 10 years because now there's the ISS, which has been created by the US. And now the threat is going to become big, and then they're going to say we're going to attack again. So for counterterrorism, every country has the right to maintain stability, its sovereignty, and internal harmony. Pakistan has done that. We even used our Air Force in our own country against the terrorists within our country, and we had the right to use that. The United States has Guantanamo Bay, which is a breach of the Geneva Convention and a complete contravention of all human rights. President Obama had said we are going to close the Guantanamo Bay, where people were kept without any charges for years and they were tortured. So the People's Republic of China, if it has a re-education center where extremists or people who are inclined to use violence are re-educated and are kept within certain parameters, why is that a problem when other countries have bombed other countries, have invaded other countries for their interests and for counterterrorism? Why cannot the People's Republic of China, within its sovereign territory of Xinjiang, have re-education camps and re-education centers? China has every right to do so. China should not be apologetic about it. China should not be defensive about it. And we should have a fact and evidence-based conversation of what the other countries have done for that. Okay. And finally, I would like to end my speech by saying that there is no more time for a zero-sum mentality. COVID has shaken the world. We have public health governance challenges. We have vaccine nationalism, vaccine inequality. A lot of the world does not have access to vaccines. I think these should be the priorities, saving people's lives. And as President Xi Jinping said, it's a people's war, where people's lives should be given priority over petty political interests. So let's move from a zero-sum mentality to a mentality where we all can benefit, where both sides can win. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mustafa Haider Said, and so much for the presentation. And with the consent of Sabah, I think before we move on to the conclusion remarks, we can have some time for our listeners. We would like to take any comments or questions or interactions from our listeners. Is there anyone who would like to add something?
May I make a comment?
Sure.
I just want to highlight the atrocities that are going on in India, inside India, and whatsoever they are doing in Indian occupied Kashmir. So we have to be very cautious on this, because like when it comes to our region, America or the Western states that are the advocates of the human rights, they forgot what is going on in India, inside India with the minorities, what is going on in Kashmir. So I guess this is the sole responsibility of our regional players and our countries like Pakistan and China and Russia and other Central Asian states. Like whatsoever have been going on in Afghanistan, the gross human rights violation in Afghanistan in over like 2 decades, whatsoever Americans did there is an epic example of atrocities against human rights. So I guess like this is the time that we as responsible states, we should come forward and we should counter all these narratives with our logics and with our facts and figures. Because like with this all, we can't move on. We can't say that like the humanitarian law is working or the human rights is working and all that. So I guess this is the time that we should shake United Nations, we should shake ICG, we should shake all the advocates of the human rights and the organizations that are dealt with the human rights thing. So like being doing the victimization policy or doing all these things, it is not that West can get its share in the world politics or the status they are maintaining since long. So they will be having all this. So I totally agree with what Mustafa said, what Zamir said, and what Carlos said. And like this is the time that we, as one unit, for the being the advocates of human rights, the actual human rights, we should highlight the plight of the people of Afghanistan, the people of Palestine, the people of Indian occupied Kashmir. And this is the time high time that we can do maximum, because like once America is out of this region, this is the time for the regional countries now to play their active role. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Sabah. Anyone else who would like to add something?
Maybe.
Yes, please, Hugh.
This has been a very constructive and informative meeting. I'm director of the Institute for Independent Studies in Britain, and we promote the study of ideologies created by people in the struggle for independence and social advance. And an aspect of this, of course, is to participate in exposing the lies in the imperialist media against other countries, particularly China, and the Zhejiang issue, or the lies about Zhejiang, have been very much in our minds recently. We're always very happy working with the Pakistani community in Britain on this, and in the promotion of friendship between China and Pakistan, providing a good opportunity for us to work together in our universities and elsewhere, where we actually have active organization, often by bodies promoting lies about Xinjiang. So I very much welcome this very constructive and informative meeting, and I've been very delighted to hear from representatives of organizations in Pakistan as well, and I hope that this can provide a basis for future interaction between us and friendship and partnership in countering all these lies about Xinjiang and other lies concerning China today.
Thank you very much, Professor. So Now let's move on to our conclusion part. Let's welcome Madame Pang Chunxue, Minister Counselor of the Embassy of China in Pakistan, to make the conclusion remarks.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, very good afternoon. It gives me great pleasure to attend this online conference. First of all, I would like to express my appreciation for Islamabad Institute of Conflict Resolution and the China NGO Network for International Exchanges for organizing this event, which provide us a very good opportunity to bring Xinjiang to what it is. I think during this about 1 hour's time, we have many speakers expressed their views. And in her keynote speech, Madame Xu gave us a very overall picture of the socio-economic development of Xinjiang, and other speakers shared with us their own experience about visiting or living or working in Xinjiang. I think all of these have given us a very clear picture of what Xinjiang is now. I think all of us acknowledges that unprecedented achievements were made in the social economic development of Xinjiang. And like our speakers have mentioned, that people of all ethnic groups in Xinjiang, including over 11 million Uyghurs, are now living a very happy life and enjoying security, peace, and happiness there. And also the Xinjiang's economic develops very steadily, and the people's living standards improved very significantly in recent years. And people of all ethnic groups in Xinjiang enjoy the freedom of religious belief, legitimate rights to participate in governance, receive education, use ethnic languages, and inherit their own traditional culture. And there are many so-called Xinjiang-related issues, but none of them anything to do with human rights, ethnic groups, or religions, but fighting terrorism, separatism, and extremism in essence. Xinjiang has upheld the principle of not linking terrorism with any particular region, ethnic group, or religion. And Xinjiang's fight against terrorism and the de-radicalization is in line with the spirit and the requirements of the rule of law. Compared to the thousands of violent terrorist attacks from 1996 to 2016, there has been zero violent or terrorist case reported over the past 4 years. To keep our people safe is the basic commitment made by the Chinese government and the Chinese Communist Party. As we all know that the allegation of genocide or any forced labor is all of fabricated stories. And those who tell lies on Xinjiang are aimed at pursuing their own anti-China political agenda. They care nothing about facts and truth at all, nor did they actually do anything good to contribute to Xinjiang's well-being. Instead, what they did with Muslims is such a hypocrisy. Let's look at the crimes committed by the US and its allies over the Islamic world for all these years. I found it particularly ironic that they dare to have the goal to point fingers at others and make up false stories for political ends. Not to mention some Western countries have been plagued by serious human rights problems, such as radical discrimination, racial discrimination, forced labor, and gun violence. And they even committed crimes, including genocide of forced nations, illegal military intervention, and indiscriminate killing of other countries' civilians. They do not reflect on their own problems, but pretend to be the defenders of human rights. Their true intention is to destabilize Xinjiang and China in general. In the name of the human rights protection, out of their ideological bias and political agendas, they spread the rumors of Xinjiang and imposed unreasonable sanctions against the local industries and companies. Their purpose is to suppress Xinjiang's industry and the overall development of this region in order to destroy the stability and harmony we have now, and to violate Xinjiang people's rights to life and development. And by doing so, they want to tarnish China's image, interfere in China's internal affairs, and curb China's development. Ladies and gentlemen, as we all know that Xinjiang is the nearest place of China to Pakistan. And it is also the starting point of China-Pakistan Economic Corridor and the hub area and the Belt and Road Initiative. The Hongjilak Pass marks a unique feature of China-Pakistan's cemented ties and an important juncture to facilitate economic and trade exchanges between the two countries. Xinjiang's development is closely connected with that of Pakistan. With the stability and prosperity in Xinjiang, its cross-border cooperation with Gilgit-Baltistan of Pakistan will be guaranteed and enjoy much potential to be boosted, which in turn will surely benefit the well-being of Pakistani friends. The Chinese government will continue to promote high-quality development featured by ethnic solidarity, social progress, and improving living standards of residents in Xinjiang. And we have every reason to believe any attempt to destabilize Xinjiang and contain China's development will doom to fail and will be opposed by more and more just upholding people like Pakistan, as well as other countries in the world. Seeing is believing, and lies can never erase the truth. We welcome you all to visit Xinjiang after the COVID and to see the real situation there and to present the true pictures of Xinjiang in an objective voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Pang. And with this, we have concluded today's session. Thank you all for coming. Thank you all for with us.